I request everybody to Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Namaste all. Thank you all for joining our yet another international webinar today on our educational platform held by Shakti Global to facilitate online sessions for everyone who would like to know more about various spiritual and health-related topics. The session will run for an hour. We request you to send your questions in the chat box, and we would hope to have time for a brief Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our well-respected and renowned neurosurgeon and spiritual guide, Dr. Timmappa Hegde. Dr. Hegde is a neurosurgeon who is presently working as the director of Narayana Institute of Neurosciences, Bangalore. He finished his neurosurgery residency at the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences in Nimans. He continued as a faculty at the Department of Neurosurgery in Nimans till 2003, where he was instrumental in starting stereotactic and functional neurosurgery. He had specialized in neurosurgical training in USA, Japan, and Netherlands. In 2004, he founded the Narayana Institute of Neurosciences, which has now become one of the finest centers of neurology and neurosurgery service with an excellent training program. He was invited by the Vatican to speak at an international meeting at Vatican City and at a special audience with the Pope, His Holiness John Paul II. With his keen interest in spirituality and overall personality development, Dr. Hegde has scaled new heights despite having a very busy neurosurgical practice. He has dedicated his life in exploring and embracing Upanishadic wisdom, Vedas, and various scriptures. I personally listen to his video sessions. Him and his Param Vedanta team has wonderful sessions on Bhagavadgītā on YouTube. I have personally been influenced by his various teaching, including the explanation of karmic cycle. Dr. Hegde, stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't want you to write for your kids.
Will someone have the power to mute anybody who accidentally unmutes them? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sushma Naik, for this wonderful opportunity to interact with members of your group. Thanks to Asha for a very nice introduction and a warm welcome. Asha began by chanting a very nice prayer. And the prayer goes like this: Sadashiva Samaramba. Samaramba means beginning. Beginning by whom? Sadashiva. Who is Sadashiva? Shiva means auspicious. Sadashiva means somebody who's always auspicious. So the first guru of Brahma Vidya. Now, whenever we begin something, we begin to offer our prostration, our gratefulness from where we got this wisdom. And where did we get this wisdom? The Adi Guru. The first guru who has given us this spiritual wisdom is Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva, when he manifested as a teacher, he came as Dakshinamurti. And another name for Dakshinamurti is Sadashiva. Shiva means auspicious, one who's always auspicious. Samaramba, who has started. Now, this teaching has come for many years. In between, it required a lot of support. It required interpretation of these very poetic teachings. Whenever a teaching is poetry, it gives a fluidity for different kinds of interpretation. And therefore, we sometimes need a guidance as to, for ourselves, what is the best way to interpret. And that is we are going by the interpretation of Shankaracharya. That's why we say Shankaracharya Madhyama. Asmadacharya. Asmad means from then on until Paryantam, till my Acharya, or Asmad means our Acharya. Vande Guru, like Vande Mataram, I offer my prostrations to my Guru. And Dr. Sushma said to speak on gratefulness and to speak about Gita. I will make a little modification on this topic. The main theme will be on the theme of gratefulness. And instead of actual Bhagavad-gītā, because a good part of my introduction will go on gratefulness, I will introduce what is Vedanta, because Bhagavad-gītā is also part of Vedanta. as doctors, our daily work is seeing various forms of diseases, and especially in a neurological setup, we see disability and we see death. Our day, every day begins when we meet families outside the operating room. And then this has to be seen to be believed. There are many doctors here who would know, or if any of your family members have gone through any major surgical procedure. When you are waiting for the surgery, that moment, just before the family members enters the operating room, what are the emotions that you go through, the uncertainty that you go through when you are subjecting your family member or yourself for a brain or a cardiac procedure. Now, our job is to be able to empower these families, assure them. But when you are by yourself and when you want to begin the surgery, you always have that uncertainty, that little fear in your heart, will I be able to deliver? So this is the kind of feelings that we go whenever we see. And then when we come out into the operating room, from the operating room, we come to the intensive care. In the intensive care, the patients are now on life supports. They are on a ventilator. They are required. Now, this requires a whole team to look after one person. That means this one person, we rely on so many other people to see them through that period of the ICU. And that is why that ICU period is always very critical until the family members come back to the ward when we deliver them to a surgery. Around that time, we have preview to certain information. What is this information? When you operate a person, especially if it is a brain tumor, now we are getting the biopsy report, and this information comes to us before it comes to the families. Now, supposing it is a good news, if it's a benign tumor, then there is no problem. But one of the most difficult jobs for a neurosurgeon is to break bad news. When you have that news that this is a malignant disease, and when you know that the lifespan of that person is certainly going to be affected, and the person has to go through quite difficult chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and you know that it's a big transition in the person's life. A person may not be the same. Now, this is the kind of emotions that we go through. And this is something that we see day in and day out. So, my dear friends, so many of us who have gathered here, why did I bring in all this? Now, this is my message. When you compare yourself to so many other people, one feeling is how blessed or how lucky we are. The theme offered to me is about gratefulness. It is only on this background you realize how lucky I am that I can see, I can speak, I can walk, I can talk. Now, let us reflect a little more on what is this gratefulness and why this topic of gratefulness is so important. Now, there is a very nice question asked by somebody. Is it that happy people are grateful or grateful people are happy? What do you mean by happy people? Those who are blessed with all the good things in the world. Are they likely to be grateful for what they have, or whenever you are grateful, you are happy? And you will have the answer immediately. The answer is, whenever I am grateful, I am happy. You cannot be grateful and miserable at the same time. What do we really want in life? We want to be happy. And friends, the shortcut to happiness is for gratefulness. Now, there are two things. One is called being grateful. The other is called grateful living. I just want you to analyze two things in your own life. All of us have had the experience of luxury. Now, I would be supposing you have an unexpected upgrade to a business class or a first class. You're not paid for it, but then suddenly, unexpectedly, you get a certain amount of luxury. And when you get that luxury, you experience it, you are happy. So let's define what is a luxury in this context. A luxury is something, when you have it, you enjoy. When you don't have it, you don't bother too much. It was given good, I've enjoyed it. Now, in contrast to a luxury, there is something called a need. What is a need? For example, health is a need, food is a need, good environment is a need. Now, to be able to interact with you, I need power, I need internet. All these are needs. Now, if these needs are not there, this meeting will come to a stop. We cannot function at all. Now, what is grateful living? Grateful living, now, therefore, what is a need? A need is something when it is there, we tend to take it for granted. When it is not there, we cannot function. Now, what is grateful living? Grateful living is the ability to convert your needs into a luxury. Now, this is a matter of training. And what is a matter of training? When I wake up in the morning, can I be grateful for the gift of another day, for the gift of health, for the gift of being independent, for the gift of being pain-free, disease-free, and so on. And therefore, if you count your blessings, and this is what I call grateful living. Now, I will go a little more deeper from grateful living, and I want you to experience what you're going through right now. From grateful living, I want you to understand one more question I'm going to ask you, and that will help you to see how we can bring this thought of grateful living all the time. My question to you is, what is a gift? I don't want you to answer aloud, but mentally, I want you to think, what is a gift? And I will answer it for you. A gift is something that we value. A gift is something that has been given freely. I have not asked for it. I have not paid for it. It has been given to me freely. And the next question I'm going to ask you, what is our greatest gift? Think. I will give you some clues, and these clues can also be misleading. And the clues are, is it the gift of my family, the gift of my friends, the gift of all my possessions? My profession, is that something I value as a great gift? Is it the gift of this body or gift of my mind? Or in addition to these 6 things, is there something which can be an even greater gift? And if you really think there is something even higher than all this, and I want you to experience it. Be with me. I want you to experience. Can you just close your eyes for a moment? Stop doing whatever you're doing. Become very sensitive to all the sounds that you might hear, to the bodily sensations that your body is going through. And in this pause, I want you to experience being now, being here, being you. You may open your eyes. Now, this is being in the now, being here, and you will realize, even though I did it just for a few seconds, you will see this is not just an ordinary gift. It is perhaps the greatest gift we have. The gift of being able to live in this moment. Because life happens in this moment. Often what happens, I may be here because I have some other important activity to do. My mind may be preoccupied in what I have to do next. And if my mind is there and I am here, I'm not with you. My thoughts are going to what I need to do next, and I'm not 100% in whatever I do. And therefore, the real skill is exactly what I did just now. Can I consciously slow down? I may be driving very fast, I may be doing something very quickly, but the more you become aware, there is a conscious pause, you go slow. And the moment you become slow, then all your sense organs become more alert, become more awake, become more alive. And then whatever we do will be 100%. So this is my message, friend. What have I told you till now? That gratefulness is a shortcut to happiness. And gratefulness, you cannot be grateful and miserable at the same time. More important than being grateful once in a while is grateful living. And grateful living is to be able to convert your necessities into a luxury. I'm so lucky. I can see, I can talk. No, really to be able to feel that. And then to be able to experience this moment and to be able to live this moment 100%. Now let us analyze. I'm with you right now. Why is it not possible for me to live this moment 100%? What is that which takes me away from this moment? And the answer is whatever I give a lot of importance to. If I give a lot of importance to my profession or to my family or to my possessions, my investments, it could be anything that I give a lot of importance to. You know, Swami Anubhavananda, my teacher, has said, whatever we give a lot of importance to, that something can be the cause of all our problems in our life. And therefore, give relative importance. Give a more importance to yourself, to being here, to being now. Everything else falls in place. If this moment is lived 100%, your next moment is going to be good. So what is that which takes me away from real time into psychological time? Whatever I give undue importance to. And therefore, can there be a shift to a greater importance to my well-being, to nowness, and to this moment? Second is, if you watch your mind, just watch your mind. I'm speaking, just find out what is happening in your mind. Can you see that constant chatter in your mind? There is a certain amount of evaluation, judging, a sort of self-talk. That is why whenever we are allowing that internal conversation to go, that is something that takes us away from this beautiful real time. And therefore, when I have this opportunity of this time, where do I shift my time to? And that is why I come to the next topic. There was a beautiful poem on gratefulness. I'll just share that poem with you. I have never made a fortune, and it is probably too late now, but I don't worry about that much. I'm happy anyhow. And as I go along life's ways, I'm reaping better than I sowed. I'm drinking from my saucer because my cup has overflowed. So whenever you are in the nowness, and these are the conscious pause that you need to do anywhere. Sometimes it may be at a traffic signal. When you have to wait for some time, use that opportunity to simply be. You are waiting for an elevator and there is a certain time. Just wait. Every opportunity to wait. Your computer is processing and for a moment you can't do anything. Don't take on to another activity. Experience doing nothing while you're doing, while you are forced to wait, and give these experiences of islands of nowness. And that is what I call is the gift of the now, the gift of the real time, the gift of being here. Now, once we know I am so blessed, the next important thing is each day of my life, can it be lived in the form of contribution? We were studying one Upanishad called the Katha Upanishad. I will come to that in a moment. And the Katha Upanishad is a dialogue between the god of death, Yamadharmaraja, and a little boy called Nachiketa. And in the process of this discussion, the whole teaching comes out that all of us have got three important debts or three important rinas. And the boy Nachiketa is able to do that. The first debt is the first boon that he asks for his father, that I ask for peace and happiness for my father. That means we have a certain debt to our own parents, that in what way I can repay what my parents have done for me. Very difficult to do, but the teaching comes somewhere else, that if you live your life in some way that you bring joy to your parents, if somebody can say how lucky your parents are that they have a daughter or a son like you, then you fulfill this debt called Pitrarina. The second is each moment of my life, each day of my life, can I be able to give more than what I have received? And finally, I come to the topic of Vedanta. And the Vedanta, the topic is what helps us to achieve our fullest potential. Having been born as a human being, having an inclination to spirituality, and if you have the guidance of a teacher, the teacher is able to give you a very systematic methodology of being able to attain to what is called Parama Purushartha. Now, what is Parama Purushartha or Moksha? Now, all of us want to be happy. Normally, where do we look for happiness? We look for happiness in people whom we love. We look for happiness in various situations that I would like to do, which will give me happiness. or we look for certain happiness in certain objects. It may be, reading a book. It may be doing, certain tasks that may bring you joy. But if you look in all of them, people, objects, or situations have only their limitations, because it is from something outside. There is a certain amount of struggle to achieve that, whether you like it or not. It is going to be taken away from you. It cannot be completely fulfilling. Now, Vedanta, I will tell you what is Vedanta. Vedanta gives you an instruction of, as I told you, can I experience fulfillment in this moment? And when I experience fulfillment in that moment, how do I make the most of that moment? That is the secret of Vedanta. Now, this is the first part of my talk. From now, I'm transitioning to the second part of the talk about the Bhagavadgītā. But instead of Bhagavadgītā, I'll touch on Vedanta. Now, when you say Vedanta, which means the end portion of the Vedas, there are three important texts a student is supposed to study to get an idea of what is Vedanta. And one of them is the Bhagavadgītā. The second is the Upanishads, and the third is called the Brahma Sutra. I will conclude in about 5 or 10 minutes so that we will have enough time to have an interaction. But I will just give you an introduction to what you mean by Vedanta. Vedas are the greatest gifts from ancient India. Veda means to know. The Vedas are voluminous. But towards the end portion of the Vedas, there is a philosophical portion called the Vedanta. There are 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and the Atharva Veda. For example, in the Atharva Veda, there are few Upanishads. And one of the Upanishads that we are recommended to study as the first Upanishad is called the Mundakopanishad. Munda means head. So the Upanishad that deals with the highest. There is a student's name is Shaunaka. He comes to the teacher, Angirasa, and there is a certain process, very reverentially you come to the teacher and say, "Oh Bhagavan, my Lord." Can we proceed? And the teaching says, "I know that you know something, knowing which everything worth knowing is you have." For example, if you know physics, you do not know chemistry. If you know medicine, you do not know engineering. So the student says, "I know you know something. If you know that, everything worth knowing is known." Now, the whole of the Mundakopanishad is an answer to say, what is that most fundamental knowledge in the Gita texts, or in the Gita lingo? There is a word called Neyam. Neyam means that which is worth knowing. And in the Mundakopanishad, the teacher will teach you what is that which is worth knowing. I gave you a reference to the Kathopanishad. And in the Kathopanishad, it is Ka, Ka, Ga, Ga, Na, Cha, Cha, Ja, Ja, Na, Ta, Ta, Ka, Tu, Ta. That is the Kathopanishad. In the Kathopanishad, the student, Nachiketa, has an opportunity to meet the god of death. And his question was, I want to know what happens after death. When a person dies, and as I was telling you that we have to break bad news. And when we break bad news, we should not be ambiguous. We have to be very clear to the family, and you have to use the right choice of words without offending the family. Now, sometimes we will say, he is no more. The body is here, but he is no more. Where has he gone to? Now, these are the questions that are addressed by the little boy, that the little boy asks. When a person dies, where does the person go to? Now, the body is left. Does the person travel? Is there something that happens after death? You are the god of death. Can you, from your own experience, tell? And that is another amazing Upanishad. We have just concluded the study of that Upanishad. Then there is another Upanishad I want you to draw your attention to, and that is from the Chandogya Upanishad. The Chandogya Upanishad is perhaps the biggest of all the Upanishads. There are many Upanishads, at least hundreds of them. We have about 108 are available. Of these 108, about 10 are recommended that we study. And of the 10, the Chandogya is the longest. It has got 8 chapters. Generally, Upanishadic teachers teach us the 6th, 7th, and the 8th chapter. Now I'm come to the 7th chapter. In the 7th chapter, the student is Narada. Narada, he has all the knowledge in the world and he has access to any place because any of the 14 lokas he can travel. Now Narada asks his brother Sanat Kumara, I have all the knowledge in the world. I have everything that anybody can have. But there is something incomplete in me. The first Governor General of India, Rajaji, he had written a very nice work in Tamil called Korai Undrum Ille. That means he himself had a lot of personal tragedies. He lost his son, he lost many of his family members, but then he had the ability to write this great poem, which M.S. Subbalakshmi has sung and made it very popular, that there is no regrets, there is no sense of emptiness whatsoever. And Narada comes to Sanat Kumara and says, despite all my knowledge, there is something which makes me feel so empty. How do I fill that void? And Sanat Kumara introduces him to what is called Bhuma Vidya. Bhuma means limitless. I want you to know something of the limitless. And he says, Yo vai Bhuma tatsukam. Only in limitlessness there is happiness. In anything that is limited, there is no happiness. For example, you will see there are so many rich people in the world. However rich you are, you would like to be more. But then what the human craving is for the limitless. I will give you a little experience about that. I will introduce to you one more Upanishad. And for especially doctors in this group, this is going to be very fascinating, especially for neurologists. In the Kena Upanishad, Kena means by what? Now, you're listening to me. You can see me on the screen. Now, what is that factor? What is that force which allows me to see? I can hear, I can think, I can speak. What is that? He uses that word, Deva. By what? And then the answer that is brought out in that Upanishad is so brilliant. And I can say, I have many neurologists in our group. Where neurology ends, Vedanta begins. Now, are we ready for a little experiment? Now, I'm seeing you and you are seeing me. Of course, we are seeing through all these electronic media. Now, imagine we were in the same hall, all right? We do a little bit of imagination. Supposing we are in the same hall, I'm speaking to you and you are there. Now, when I'm seeing you in front of you, when I'm seeing you, the question to you is, am I really seeing you or I'm seeing only an image of you? Now, let us see how seeing happens. Dr. Sushma, you must be an ophthalmologist. I'm not sure. But how seeing happens. Now, if I can see so many objects in the room. And why do I see? Because light falls on those objects. And because light is reflected on those objects, they come into my eyes through the clear part of the eye, which is the cornea. And then there is the lens, and the lens will focus the image on the retina. So all the objects now become inverted images on either eye. I have two eyes, so the whole world becomes inverted on my two eyes. Now, from there, there is a photo electric transducer in the retina, and from the retina, the optic nerve takes the information to the optic tracts to the chiasm, and the information goes to the brain. And so the brain is able to reconstruct the light images and give me a feeling that you are there. Now, what has happened? Initially, you have been reduced to an image in my eye, not one image, but two small inverted images. And those two small inverted images are reconverted into electrical signals. And then I have a feeling that you are there, isn't it? So my question is, am I really seeing you or I'm seeing only an image of you? Now look around. Are you really seeing or are you really hearing? We are only seeing images because to see anything, I need an instrument. And all my interaction is through various instruments. My sense organs are instruments. My mind is an instrument. My mind is a supercomputer. So now, therefore, my whole world perception is based on the limits of this instrument. For example, my eyes can see only the light spectrum. That means beyond infrared or ultraviolet, the electromagnetic spectrum, I do not see. A dog can hear much more than we can hear because of the hearing frequencies are different. Our instrument is limited. So too my mind. My mind is a processor with a certain limited memory stores. To a limited amount, it can process that information. However good, our minds may be. And therefore, if there is some information which is beyond that, it may look irrational, but actually it is supra-rational. My mind cannot go through that information. Now, these are some of the questions I want to think how Vedanta answers all these questions. See, I have to see who is this Kenopanishad, who is that fellow who's using all these instruments. Now, I have a computer in front of me. The computer is a wonderful device because of which I'm able to interact with you. But then somebody intelligent has to handle this computer. So the Kenopanishad is asking, who is that fellow? And to answer this, the Upanishad will introduce something called the Bhuma, the infinite. And it says your real nature. Now, in our language, now many of you are in the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia, maybe New Zealand, wherever. Now, if I send a message to you, within a moment, you get that message. And how do you get that message? Because the moment I give a voice message or if I text a message, it is delivered from my device into the cellular space. And the cellular space is pervading all over the world. For temporary purposes, we'll take the cellular space as something infinite. Infinite and that which is everywhere. Now, because you are holding a device and because I have directed it towards you, your respective ID, now the SIM card in your phone is able to detect that. And the SIM card is like my mind, which has a modem to be able to interact with that infinite principle, which we call in Vedanta as Brahman or Atman. My mind, and then the mind uses the body like the telephone or the hard drive. And that is how I'm able to get this image or get this audio or get this sound. I'll give you one or two. I'll conclude with one or two experiments. And I want you to be part of this experiments. And once you are with this experiment, then you will be able to understand how we get this knowledge, what are the limitations of this knowledge. Now, the first is, I already told you, if I have to interact with the world, I have to use my sense organs and my mind. My sense organs, you will say, only if I can see it, I will believe it. But are you sure? Now, I see the sunrise and the sunset, and it is very clear that the sun is rising and the sun is setting. But what is the truth? Just the other way around. So your eyes can fool you. How many times you've been in a stationary train and because of the movements of the train on either side, you have a sensation of movement? How many times on a hot day you've been driving and you see moisture on the road and you drive past, there is no moisture. Now, so, when you go to certain lakes, like for example in Manasarovar, because of the sky, the lake looks so dark blue. And you lift that water, you see it's crystal clear water. So there are so many limitations in these sense organs. Another test that I want to do, and I want you to go through the experience of deep sleep. Now, I want you to watch somebody who's sleeping. And this insight came to me when I was with my father, who was in a hospital, critically ill in the ICU. He was having a bad cough. He had a sense of insecurity about what is going to happen, and he would periodically check if I was around. And in these moments of, uncertainty, he would fall off to sleep and he would begin to snore. And suddenly I realized the moment you are asleep, all the problems in the world have disappeared. There is no problems whatsoever. There is no sense of time. There is no sense of place. The moment you wake up, suddenly you realize, oh, where am I? What time is it? How long have I been sleeping? Because during sleep, there is no sense of time. There is no sense of place. There is no identification. And in sleep, you have an experience what in Vedanta they speak of Ananta. Ananta means limitless. And that is why in sleep we have Ananda. Normally, when we wake up, my mind wakes up. And with my mind, all my problems also wake up. And therefore, Vedanta will say, even though you wake up, can you wake up now as an awakened person And in spite of experiencing all these problems that you have to go through your day, can you have that enlightened state where the problems are no longer going to bother you? My final test, and this is all for the sake of discussion with you, I want you to look at your own photograph when you're a 4-year-old boy or a 4-year-old girl. Yes, you have that picture of yourself when you're very little. Now, my question to you is, where is that boy or girl now? Is that girl or boy listening to me? Why? Physically you've changed, mentally you've changed, your thoughts have changed, your knowledge has changed, your friends have changed, your outlook have changed, and yet you have not changed. What is that you that continues all through? I will stop here for a little bit of a discussion because I want you to understand the real me is not my body, is not my mind. We will say it is embodied, but embodied means the feeling of something within me. But in Vedanta, they say it is not part of my body. It is not a product of my body. One more test. Allow me to do this test. Now, I want you to see my hand, and you'll be able to answer these questions as you're seeing my hand. Now, my question is, you're seeing my hand. In addition to my hand, is there something else which is not part of my hand, which is not a product of my hand, which is not a property of my hand, which is an independent entity? And the answer is the light on my hand. The clue is because of that, you can see my hand. Now, the light has nothing to do with the hand, but it is an integral part of the hand. So too, that Atma or that consciousness is like the cellular space. It is everywhere. It is an independent entity. It is the same in you. It is the same in me. It is the same in an ant. It is the same in an elephant. Through this modem, like the SIM, we are able to interact with that cellular space and we are able to run around and do our activities. But essentially, I am Atma Brahma, for the time being playing the role of a man or a woman, young or old, patient or a doctor, because I have that SIM that identifies with this body for the time being. Vedanta helps you to disidentify the instrument that which you and identify with that Atma, claim that Atma, play the role of whatever you have to do. To Dr. Sushma, Asha, this is my presentation. I will be very happy to be able to clarify any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hegde. We've got a few questions in the chat, and I hope that many people will be posting more questions. So the first question is from Lalita. Namaste, Dr. Hegde. If I dedicate myself to knowing one ancient book over this year, which one do you recommend?
Certainly the Bhagavadgītā. Now, the Bhagavadgītā is the original, we believe it is from the mouth of Sri Krishna himself. So Sri Krishna is, like all of us, a Grihastha, brought to us by Vedacharya, Vyasacharya, who is a Grihastha, as an instruction given to Arjuna, who is a Grihastha. So you have all whatever way I spoke about the Vedas, Sarvopanishado Gavo. Now, the essence of the Upanishads in a very musical form has been brought down to us and given to us in the form of a Gita. Now, Gita is 700 verses in Sanskrit. Now, when you look at it, it looks very difficult. Of course, you need a teacher like Swamiji. We are all blessed to have a teacher like him. And now, whatever you require to be able to understand, people like us are available to help you, so that you get the first baby steps. And then there will be a certain step so that you'll be on your own. But I would recommend as the first book, the Bhagavad-Gītā.
As a busy neurosurgeon, how did you get drawn towards Vedanta and spirituality? Did you learn the Upanishads during childhood or later in life? For a beginner who has no idea about Vedanta and Upanishads, what is your recommendation about where to start reading?
All right. See, I have had no background of all this in my early life at all. So actually, it is quite late in life. It may be only after the age of 50. So quite late in life that I went into a proper study of the scriptures. So until then, I have shared this before, that when Narayan Shridharya started a new unit in Chinmay Mission Hospital, that's when I first got an interaction with the Swamijis. And that's when I was forced to study, because he gave me an opportunity to be a chief guest at a Gita Jnana Yajna. And I thought as a chief guest, you have to speak about the Gita. And I knew nothing about it, no idea about Sanskrit and all that. So certainly it's quite late in life. But then what I'm saying is Sanskrit is a difficult language. But right now I'm breaking my head to understand Sanskrit, and I can share with you the joys of learning both Sanskrit and the Gita. And it is possible that you can combine whatever you're interested in, you make the time for it.
That's a beautiful point, Dr. Hegde. My Sanskrit teacher, Jayanti Sri Krishna ji, is here in this audience. She's a teacher who is teaching me from India. Yeah, it is very difficult, I understand. You mentioned earlier, Neyam. What is Neyam?
Neyam yattat pravakshami. Neyam. Shri Krishna says, he gives you the promise. Neyam yattat pravakshami. I will teach you that which is worth knowing. Neyam means your Sanskrit teacher will be able to clarify. Neyam is that which is worth knowing. The 13th chapter of the Bhagavadgītā, I think from verse 13 onwards or something, at that stage, Shri Krishna suddenly takes off. He really takes off into ecstatic teaching.
Wonderful, wonderful. For a patient who is terminally ill or their relatives in despair, as a neurosurgeon, did you think our ancient knowledge of Vedanta Upanishads have an answer? Do you believe in afterlife or reincarnation? In Christianity, one more question associated with that. In Christianity, there is a chaplain service available for terminally ill. Does our Sanatana Dharma have any such avenues?
All right. Now, whenever you have all the good things in the world, you never learn. So, whenever bad things happen, if you get so involved in why this happened to me or my family, and you get so mentally upset, again, you do not learn. But when bad things happen to good people, and then you begin to introspect why, and if you're open to learning, that is where there is a quantum jump. So those families who are waiting outside the ICU, if they are not overwhelmed by why me, why this has happened to me, but if we are able to learn, that is an opportunity for a quantum jump from one level to another level. So normally that is not the right time to introduce any of these teachings, because at that time we just need to allow them to express their emotions, be available for them, and do whatever they want, because spirituality is not the want at that time. So I use this example. Is it winter now for you in Australia? Maybe.
Slowly starting.
This winter is going to start.
It will start very soon.
Now, maybe those who are south of Melbourne and all that, when the winter is bad, life still goes on as normal. People still work like usual. Why? Because they anticipate winter and they are prepared for winter. Now, so too, all of us now, it is not when somebody is in the ICU or when somebody is terminally ill. Now, we too will go through all seasons of our life, and therefore, I will say that best time is now, the place is here. Find a teacher who will be able to guide you. About teacher, I'm going to tell you one more thing. In this country, in India particularly, we have a surfeit of very good teachers who are underemployed or unemployed. Nobody goes to them. Not, because we are so lost into our own activity. There is no dearth of teachers. There are teachers available. But then that's why they say, there are three important things. We have been born as human beings. Manushuttam is there. Mumukshuttam, that inclination is there. Mahapurusha is there. That is a guru or an acharya. We need three things. Otherwise, the Bhagavad-Gītā without a guru, self-study, I will always compare. Recently, I'd been to Konark, which is near Puri. Now, once you go there, all hundreds of people will come as offering as a guide, and then you bargain with them and say, this is too much. And you can go by yourself and you see nothing. Now you employ that guide and tell him, see, I'm very busy. Can you give me a short tour? He will give you certain things that you have never seen. But if you say, now I want to know about this place, I have all the time in the world, I'll give you whatever you require. Now, can you see how that place opens up to you? Now, suddenly that guide has all the time. And if you provide him what he requires, you will see this whole place becomes something different. So without a guide, I'm just giving, but if you want to go to some difficult treks where the paths are uncertain, then you certainly need a guide who will take you.
Sir, what's your advice for the youth of this generation?
I have no advice. See, I have, when they come to you, I think as parents, we should be role models only. No advice, because how can you give advice to somebody who's not seeking advice? So you can advise only someone who's seeking advice. So therefore, those who have got some learnings, you should be an embodiment of your learning. And therefore, as parents and in whatever roles that you play, let your teaching reflect in everything that you do, because nobody listens to your advice really. So therefore, I would never offer advice unsolicited.
Yeah. Do you believe in afterlife?
Of course. See, that is the whole discussion on Kathopanishad. See, this is where it goes beyond the domain of science. Now, when we study the scriptures from a scientific angle, what do we want to know? See, if something is irrational, we will not go by it. If something is not in accordance with your experience, we will not go by it. Now, initially, the spiritual teachers will give you the teaching in a very logical manner so that you go along with the teaching. They will also give the teaching in accordance with your experience, because if it is part of your experience, you will agree. Now, when it comes to something, what happens after death? Now, that is something science has no access to. So that is where we need what is called not belief, but it is called Shraddha. Shraddha means, now when you trust a doctor to operate on your thing, are you going by belief or going by Shraddha? When you believe somebody, you are going by, mistrust. But on the other hand, when you trust somebody, you have surrendered yourself to that person. Now, when you know the Guru is the right person to guide you, then the Guru will open the Shastras for you in a particular way. Now, see, about this afterlife and all, I don't believe in the sense, the Shastras have various levels of teaching. There, depending upon the mind you have, there are certain levels of teaching. And the ultimate level of teaching is, there is no rebirth. Believe me, in the ultimate level of teaching, there is no rebirth. Why? Because there is no birth. Only if there is birth, there will rebirth. See, the main teaching words of Bhagavadgītā are in the second chapter. Na jayate, mriyate va kadachit. There is no birth, no death at any time. Nayam bhutva bhavita vanabhu ajaha nityaha sashvataha puranaha na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Sri Krishna is trying to get Arjuna awake in that moment. And his opening teaching is that na jayate. There is no birth, Arjuna. When there is no birth, where is the death that you're talking about? This is the real teaching. So if you're talking about rebirth and all, these rebirths and all are like these Puranic stories. These Puranic stories are, when the child is crying, what do? You put a pacifier for some time for the child, pacifying. But once the child is a little awake, then you don't give a pacifier. You address the problem. So when you want to address the problem, there is no question of birth, there is no question of death. You have been there from the very beginning, if there is a beginning. You will be there till the very end, if there is a beginning.
Yeah. Another question is, how old were you when you started learning Sanskrit?
About 3 years younger than my present age. I've been struggling with Sanskrit for the last 3 years. Now, really, for the first time, now I'll tell you, today I explained these words, no? What is those words? Asma,
Lajjai.
Acharya, Paryantam. Each word is loaded, you know. Each word you will see, and Sanskrit is a really beautiful language. You will see there is so much, one is the language itself, and that is why it is called Devavani. It is the language of the gods. Samskrita means refined. It is purified to the highest level. It is so poetic. But I will say, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Samprapte, Sam Nihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati, Dukrin Karane. Let not Sanskrit grammar be the focus. Now get the essence of the Bhagavadgītā. Get the essence of the Upanishads. Once you got the essence and you have the time to do whatever, see, all of us are, on short notice. Anytime that call might come. See, as doctors and those who are on call, you know that if you are on call and you are at home, the moment the call comes, you should be ready to go. So we have reached a stage of life when you know the call might come anytime. Now, at this time, Sanskrit becomes a little lower priority. Understanding the Vedas in English in your own mother tongue becomes the first priority. But if you want to teach, if you want to get the finer aspects, then of course, there is more you can go into.
Next question is, please recommend how I could find a guru. And I would also like to just add to that question, which I had. When we are in a place like Australia, where the learned gurus who can guide us are not physically that very much available, would following discussions by, say, for example, Param Vedanta teachings on Bhagavad-Gītā, and like Swami Ved Chaitanya, Swami Abharajitananda. So listening to those teachings, would that be similar to having a guru to guide us?
Let me share what all of us in Param Vedanta have done. None of us have left our families. We have not left our work. We have not gone to any Gurukula. We have not studied Sanskrit formally, except a few of us now. All that we have done is got the treasures of the teachings of Swami Paramarthananda. It is available even now. Instant download is available. I think Yoga Malika, you can go to that website and get all his teachings, perhaps on the Bhagavad-Gītā or the summaries. Now, just listen to the great master himself speaking to you in his own pace. Now, once you have got a taste of it, and then you have doubts, you have people like us all the time. I mean, we'll be very happy to be available to guide you into, but that is the source. When the source is available, we have studied from the same source. And what we've done is we have offered, space for like satsang spaces. Now, we were in this place in my own home. We used to have a group of people coming in on Sundays, like the same day. And that's how Param Vedanta grew. Now, then we started a group here, a study group here, a study group in my hospital. That's why we have so many people from Narayan Pradale. And then another group, I don't know how I took myself to another place. And then finally, when that COVID came, we could not meet. And this platform became online. And that is how we have so many people online who are studying. Now, listening to these teachings should take you to the original teaching. Now listen to Swamiji directly speaking on the Gita and the Upanishads. He has spoken it in a way a 10-year-old will be able to understand. And someday, when you come to India, his doors are always open. Do a namaskara for him, offer whatever Guru Dakshina, because the ultimate teaching is, he's still available. He's still teaching every day in Chennai. But my recommendation, wherever in the world you are, you have access to teaching. And now through Dr. Sushma, those of you online, if you're not in this country, I will certainly share my email ID for you. I'll be happy to guide you for sincere students. If you are very keen, it's a question of how much I'm wanted. If that want is there, I'll tell you, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Oh, that's absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for that.
Doctor,
Go ahead.
my name is Rahav and I am living in Gold Coast. I am following this. I don't study any Sanskrit or anything else, but I'm following spirituality from every religion, particularly from South Indian. I'm Hindu and South India, and I am following a few masters. Actually, they are enlightened, like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Ramana Maharishi. And this I always have questions. They didn't study any Upanishad or any Vedanta or anything else, but they enlightened. Ramana Maharishi enlightened when he was 16 years old, and straight away he got the enlightened. So, and other one I am deeply following from South Indian spiritual literature. It is called Kannappan. So he's just the hunter, and all of a sudden he got enlightened. Really, do we need to study all those things to get an enlightened? And one more question: why I really admire Lord Krishna and in his leelas and everything. Why Krishna chosen Arjuna to teach Bhagavadgītā instead of not choosing Bhishma and Drona and other very enlightened souls there?
The first question. Now, I'm a neurosurgeon, and I have spent years in training under the guidance of great teachers how to become a neurosurgeon. Now, without a guide to tell you how to do the intricacies of surgery, without somebody hand-holding you, I would think if I go to YouTube videos and how to operate on a brain, can you imagine somebody becoming a neurosurgeon after going through certain YouTube videos? So too, I can say understanding spiritual wisdom is more difficult than neurosurgery. Now, what we spoke of, Ramana and Ramakrishna, are spiritual geniuses, and we will always find geniuses. Now, in all these schools of spirituality, the teaching is, even with a great teacher, not all the students are able to understand. I mean, our ability to get it is not there. As a teacher in all your field, you will see all of us are different. Now, if somebody gets it with the teacher is surprised. So, that's my question is, without a teacher, unless a person is a gifted spiritual geniuses like all the people that you quoted, so they come under exceptions. The norm is this, we need a teacher, and that is why you ask this question also. There is some human being who's alive. Sometimes we will think of great teachers who are not there, that we can look at their photograph and get inspiration. But you need a live teacher to clarify your doubts. That is one. The second is Swami Paramarthananda himself has addressed it right in the first chapter of the Bhagavad-Gītā. Arjuna goes through a lot of conflict, and in part of his conflict, he does not give Sri Krishna a chance to open his mouth in the entire first chapter, because he's talking nonsense. He's giving, I'm not saying nonsense, but he's giving his worldly wisdom, why I should not fight. If I go to the battle, there will be so much of deaths happening. The society will get destroyed. Our culture will go, and all very logical reasoning he was giving. But then there was an inner doubt when Sri Krishna was keeping quiet. Then a time comes when he said, I'm confused. I'm your student, please teach me. Now, this is the answer. He has surrendered to Sri Krishna like a student. That is why when somebody asks me, what is your advice for the youth? Now, if somebody comes to me and, deliberately, sometimes the teacher will make the student wait to know whether he's really interested. If the person is really interested, only then you give. So Arjuna surrendered in the middle of that battle to Sri Krishna. Shishya say, please accept me as your student. I have surrendered to you. So that is Swami Paramarthananda's answer for this question.
Thank you, Doctor.
Question. Yeah. Next question is, Dr. Hegde, this vast knowledge, how is it helpful in your practice as a neurosurgeon?
Byproduct. See, Nandati, Nandati, Nandativa. Honestly, if the teaching is right, every moment you experience the joy of being. And whatever happens is a byproduct. So, certainly, it helps me to be able to address families. It helps me to empower them when they go through certain difficulties. But the byproduct is primarily for yourself. The byproduct is there for your family. In Vedanta, you will see the first real change happens in the person, and then it happens elsewhere.
Yeah. Really appreciate your time and sharing the knowledge, Dr. Hegde. If there is no birth or death, what is the purpose of our time on earth?
Time pass. Really. Now, if you really look, I'm saying very casual, if you really see, there is no purpose, no meaning other than living each moment to its fullest. Whenever you give a purpose, you have to accomplish something, then you have made a distinction between being in the now and being there. There is always a disparity. I want to be there and I'm struggling here. So initially, maybe as a drama, you empower people that, you have to be like a role model, you have to be good, you have to be knowledgeable, you have to be this, that. I told you those three rinas, Pitra Rina, Loka Rina, and Acharya Rina are the goals given as a outline. But the real life is if a person is living this moment to its fullest. Each breath I take in is an inspiration. And each breath I breathe out, I expire. I die to this moment. I'm not carrying this moment to the next moment. Every moment is an inspiration. Every moment you die to the past. And the real living is living in the now. And I want you to experiment today. Spend some time this Sunday. There is really no purpose. We are not here to create a fortune for our children. We are not here to be role models for, those are all byproducts. If it happens, good.
In Christianity, there is a chaplain services available for terminally ill. Does Sanatana Dharma has any other avenues?
I've worked in Christian hospitals and I see so meaningful all those services are. It becomes very meaningful for the families to come to that service of acceptance. Unfortunately, this kind of practice is not there in Sanatana Dharma, to my knowledge. There are so many rituals that happen. We need to go into those details. I have studied Kathopanishad. And in Kathopanishad, Yamadharmaraja himself has said, whenever a person dies and there is a funeral ceremony, a lot of people gather and we attend all these ceremonies. All we are waiting is for the function to get over, some speeches or some little bit of ceremonies, and then we have some food and go away. And then there will be some waiting period when there is so much of noise and nobody's doing anything. Now, the instruction is, can we get the gist of the Kathopanishad, which is really our own understanding of what is life, what is death, and so on. So I think, I am not knowledgeable about Sanatana Dharma and its those practices, but I have a little knowledge of Vedanta. And in Vedanta, 10 portion of the Veda, Yamadharmaraja himself has said, this is the last verse of the first chapter of the Kathopanishad. He says, during the Sharad ceremony, I would be happy if you will read this first chapter, which I have spoken to you about.
There are some chaplaincy services coming up in UK and Western countries because of helping even more so the clinicians to understand the background of the families. One of our hopes as Shakti Global is that we would be able to have a chaplaincy services. The limiting step is having a guide to guide us and dedicated volunteers to form that. If the universe wants us from us, it will happen. We'll go back
Very
to
good.
the question.
No, I think you will fulfill a very important void that is there. And I will tell you, this is the instruction of Gautama Buddha. You know, whenever somebody dies, if you have volunteers, I want you to use this opportunity to visit families of people who are dying. I will tell you what a learning experience it can be. Your presence not only empowers them, but you come back a wiser person and your own understanding about life and death.
I think that's mostly the question. Oh, there's one more question there.
I've enjoyed this interaction with
you are an inspiration, Dr. Hegde. Please guide us, doctors, on 5 best points to bridge the Western medical knowledge to spiritual knowledge for our day-to-day practice. Thank you.
Is that a question?
Yes.
I can't think of 5 points.
Panchamahayagna.
First, you know what is Panchamahayagna? See, I think that's one of your philosophies, Panchamahayagna. Okay, if you want me to speak on Panchamahayagna, I mean, you know all that. Deva Yagna, Pitra Yagna, Bhuta Yagna, Manusha Yagna, and Brahma Yagna. Now, what is Panchamahayagna? See, this is part of Karma Yoga. What is Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga and Upasana Yogas are 2 sadhanas which give a person eligibility for spiritual knowledge. Now, before a person goes into a medical course, particularly in the US and other countries, you have a 1 year or 2 year, what is called a pre-med. You know, you spend in some sort of training before you enter into a medical school. In our countries and all, we have the PUC, which is unless you finish that, you are not eligible to come to a medical training, to get into a training in medicine. Now, you have to spend years in Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. Karma Yoga means whatever action I'm doing, I do it as an offering to God. And whatever I get it, I take it as a prasada. Ishvara Arpana Bhava, Ishvara Prasada Bhava, and I give my very best. That is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga will take away certain impurities from my mind and make my mind receptive for knowledge. Now, when the teacher is teaching, the mind has to be very alert and very sensitive. And for that, we need what is called Upasana Yoga. Upasana Yoga is various forms of meditation. For example, the teacher will give you a japamala and ask you to chant a particular mantra. Shri Rama, Jaya Rama, Jaya Jaya Rama, so many times. Now, when you do that, it looks for a busy person a waste of time, but all these are giving you eligibility. That means you want to study Bhagavadgītā, you do Karma Yoga, that means your Panchamahayagna and this for so many years. Now, what is Panchamahayagna? Pitra Yagna, that means can I do certain offerings for my parents and for all the elderly in the community. Manusha Yagna, go an extra mile service for fellow human beings. Bhuta Yagna, for the environment, plants and animals. Brahma Yagna, what we're doing now, the scriptural study. And Deva Yagna, when you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, you have woken up into the world of the 3 Devis. Who are the 3 Devis? See, when you're fast asleep, you are in Najayate Mriyate state, what is called Paramarthika. You're one with Brahman. When you wake up and identify with this body, you have entered the world of the 3 Devis. Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Parvati. Now you begin with Karagre Vasate Lakshmi, Karamadhye Saraswati, Karamule Sthite Gauri, Mangalam Karadarshani. That means you pray to the three Devis. This world is created by those three Devis because I need knowledge, wealth, and strength. Before I put my foot on the ground, I ask Bhumi Shakti. I think the whole organization is named as Shakti. Bhudevi. I ask Bhudevi permission. Can I put my feet on the ground? Can I have Samudra Vasane Devi, Parvati Stana Mandali? This is Vishnu Patni Namastubhi Lakshmi. Padas Pashak Shamasvi. Please forgive me. I'm going to put my. From that moment, you are in the world of the three Devis. So that is Deva Yajna. You come to the puja room, you light a lamp. So you have all these prayers will be part of Deva Yajna, Brahma Yajna, scriptural studies, Manusha Yajna, and Bhuta Yajna, fellow human beings, and Pitra Yajna for the elderly and your ancestors. And
All right. I think we'll conclude here. It looks like thank you so much, and we really would appreciate your email contact so that we can keep in touch with you, Dr. Hegde, and we hope to have you back again for our group with yet another beautiful topic. On behalf of everybody who's assembled here, we extend our heartfelt gratitude for sharing your insights and enriching life's wisdom. Thank you all for your active participation and thoughtful engagement. The success of these sessions lie in the engagement and enthusiasm to learn. We welcome expression of interest from everybody about topics that we can conduct for Shakti's webinars. And until our next meeting, stay inspired.
Thank you, Dr. Hegde.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
you. Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
so
sir.
much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
It was a
Thank
very
you.
interesting
Namaste.
session we had.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was wonderful. The best teacher ever. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And we hope to receive that email very, very soon. Thank you.
you could note down thegde@gmail.com. thegde@gmail.com. You can, Dr. Sushma, you could share it with your group.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks and good day to you. I did.
Namaste.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaste.